What's up? What's going on? We're live. We'll do it live. We'll just do it live. What's up, everyone? I'm Connor. I'm the host of Who Gives a Dram. Thank you for tuning in to episode 63, I think. Let me double check here real quick on this fancy laptop. 63. We're 63 episodes in to the greatest whiskey podcast in the history of podcasts. And that's a fact that was confirmed by the CDC a few weeks ago. So thank you to CDC for doing that research. It actually goes, Who Gives a Dram, and then right on the same tier is Bourbon with Friends. If you don't have Bourbon with Friends merch, go over to our store. I think you can get there through our Instagram. Got the best merch. I was looking in. I want to start a merch store again. I've always wanted to start a merch store. I love merch. I love designing merch. It's fun. Anyways, we've got a great episode this week, you guys. Another whiskey, another hitter. I wanted to stay on the barrel proof train, so I'm doing something I'm very excited to do. Y'all know I love my Elijah Craig barrel proof. It's my favorite. It's what I like to drink. So I am going to review Elijah Craig barrel proof C921 today. For those on YouTube, there it is. Elijah Craig C921, the last release from 2021, the year that was 2021. And I didn't find this bottle for, I don't think I found it till this year. Actually, my brother found it, and the kind soul that he is, he bought it for me, knowing that I would just go out and buy it for myself. So shout out to Kale. But before we get into the meat and potatoes, quickly, make sure you're supporting the show. Just subscribe on all the platforms, Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Those are only two that there's a lot of others. Go subscribe. Wherever you're listening, go subscribe. YouTube, I'm at like 95 subscribers at the time of this recording, so go subscribe on YouTube, like the videos on there, comment, so on and so forth. And Instagram, all that stuff, Who Gives a Dram. Make sure you're following there as well. And make sure you're checking out my other podcast, Bourbon with Friends. And as always, every single week, this podcast is brought to you by the Grapevine Media. Starting my blogging back up. Now that I have, it's not that I found free time. It's just that the stars aligned last week where I could write an article, and I didn't feel I was crunched for time, and I really enjoyed it. So I'm going to do it again, and I'm going to do it again. So I do post my whiskey reviews in writing on there. It's nothing fancy. It's maybe like a minute or two read, but I say my thoughts on the podcast here live. Not technically live, but I don't edit it, so live. And also, I also like to write down my thoughts in a little bit more of a professional manner. But regardless, I have a Stag review up there, so Stag Junior from last week, Midwinter Night's Dram, Bunnahabhain, Larceny Barrel Proof. These are all written reviews I've done, and those are only and exclusively on the Grapevine Media. So go check us out over there, www.thegrapevinemedia.com. I got a lot of stuff to talk about. I had stuff that I wanted to touch on, and I keep a notes section every week. So I have in my notes this week, I think episode 63, Elijah Craig Barrel Proof C921. I have a list of topics. Obviously, the big thing that happened this weekend was UFC 270. We are going to touch on that a little bit, and I'm going to give my thoughts. Boba Fett and Peacemaker both released episodes 4 this week. Obviously, by the time this podcast comes out, episode 5 should be released, I think, for each episode. But I'm just going to talk about those, quickly hit on those. And I was talking to my buddies at work today about something, and I told myself I want to talk about it on the podcast, so we're going to hit on that as well. But first, we're going to pour some whiskey in the glass. Elijah Craig Barrel Proof C921, a little squeaky squeak right there before the pop. Last week was the greatest pop of all time. If you haven't watched my Stag review, go watch it. It's killing it on YouTube. It's going dummy viral. It's got like 130 views. But go check out my Stag review on from last week on YouTube, or just listen to it, because the cork pop is amazing. And I actually think about it sometimes when I'm not doing anything with whiskey. So just a little bit. Don't gotta drive anywhere, but still. Should do a live slam and sip, just like that one dude Ryan. So we're gonna let this sit in the glass for a little bit. I've obviously had a little bit. My brother's had a little bit. We've taken a few sippy poos here and there of Elijah Craig, and that it is what it is. Not gonna go into the history of Elijah Craig barrel proof. This is the 7th or 8th bottle of Elijah Craig barrel proof we've done on the podcast, not including the small batch single barrel that we did, not including the toasted barrel that we did. I mean, if you can't tell, I love Elijah Craig. This came out in September 2021, obviously, noted by the C921. It is 120.2 proof. It is also 60.1% alcohol by volume. 12-year-old non-chill filtered that we've had on the podcast before. Mash bill, 78% corn, 12% malted barley, 10% rye. I don't know if that's confirmed or not. I think it is. And like I said, it's a blend of 12-year-old whiskeys, and it's MSRPing for, we're going to say 65 to 75 upwards at the upper tier. But 65, I think, is a legit number, but we're going to say 65 to 75. We like to do ranges on this podcast. Range, median, and mode. Remember that in middle school or wherever? For me, that was in high school because I was stupid. I am excited to drink this. I think Elijah Craig barrel proof B520 or one of them, I'm pretty sure it was B520, was the highest reviewed whiskey I've done on the show. I loved it, and I still have it somewhere back there. I don't know. My Elijah Craig barrel proof selection goes all the way to the back of my whiskey cabinet here. So I got one row full of Elijah Craig barrel proof. It's a little bit higher proof than the B521 that we did on the show a few months ago. Also, the B521 was the lowest proofed Elijah Craig barrel proof that they've ever come out with. So 2021 was a year for low proofs, and I'm pretty sure 2022, A122, is starting at a lower proof as well. Nothing wrong with that, just pointing that out. I'm going to say that, this is a hitter. I would consider Elijah Craig barrel proof a hitter, and I'm happy we're going to do this right off the heels of doing Stag, a great pour, a great review, 9.3. We'll see how this stacks up. But first, I want to talk a little bit of fighting, and then we'll get into the nose of the podcast. We'll get into the nose of the whiskey. We'll start talking about both of these things. I just got to pull up the stats again for Ngannou versus Gagne. The whole card was pretty good. We started the card out, Michael Morales versus Trayvon Giles. Two no-names. I think Michael Morales was an up-and-comer. It's a welterweight bout. He won by KO. Nice KO as well. That was fun. That was a great way to open the card. Then we had Cody Stamann versus Said Nurmagomedov. I'm going to let you guess who won that fight. If you have a chin-strap beard and your last name is Nurmagomedov and you're from Dagestan, you win fights. That's just what you do. Said Nurmagomedov won by submission via, how did he win? Arm bar? Triangle? I forgot how he won. He received performance of the night. Within less than a minute he won. And Cody Stamann, he's been around for a while. Bantamweight, respected bantamweight. He's a good fighter. I've seen him fight many times. Said Nurmagomedov kicked his ass, and he's not ranked. I'm sure he'll be creeping towards that top 15 after this. Just killed my dude, Cody Stamann. Cody Stamann has a tattoo around his arm that's just a solid black line, like he's wearing a sleeve, and I don't like it. But Said Nurmagomedov is also so ugly. And that's not because he's Dagestani or anything. It's just he's very white and lanky and doesn't have a good beard, doesn't have good hair. He would beat my ass, but regardless. And he's a bantamweight, 135. That is the most stacked division. I'm actually excited to see Said Nurmagomedov fight again because I know how stacked bantamweight is with talent. The third fight of the night was Michel Pereira versus Andre Fialho. This was a classic boxer versus kind of Muay Thai specialist. Michel Pereira is just a crazy guy. He'll straight up do backflips in the middle of the fight. You might have even seen highlights of him. But this Andre guy was just a flat-footed boxer. Not flat-footed, but very boxing forward in his approach. And he won round 1 pretty easy, but rounds 2 and 3 both went to Michel Pereira. I'm pretty sure that's how it was. I think it was a 49-48 unanimous decision for Michel Pereira. And then we get to the 2 main events, which is what I really want to talk about while I'm getting my sniffing notes here. Ooh, interesting. Brandon Moreno versus Figueredo. I always say Figueredo, but it's Figueredo. Brandon Moreno versus Davison Figueredo for the flyweight championship. Brandon Moreno came in at a minus 190 favorite, and he had the entire country of Mexico behind him. He had a huge pop when he came out, and it was awesome to watch. Figueredo had Henry Cejudo in his corner, and no one wanted him to win. Brandon Moreno came out second, obviously, and his pop was humongous. His ring walk was humongous. I remember telling my brother as we're watching it, that is a top 5 ring walk of all time, and I agree with it because Brandon Moreno, such an underdog story, got cut from the UFC, came back, won the championship. I mean, such an underdog, and from what everyone says and from all the videos that he's in, the nicest guy in the world. So I was super happy to see this fight and to see him win the previous fight. And this rematch was such a good fight. Such a good fight. This third fight was. I'm not gonna lie. Moreno started strong. He definitely started strong. Quick, just very quick is what I remember. But the problem with this fight was Figueredo had a few knockdowns. I think he knocked him down in the 3rd round. He might have even knocked him down in the 1st round quickly, which is kind of what won this fight for Figueredo. I think it could have gone either way. Figueredo won by unanimous decision, so he's the new champion. And we're probably going to get this fight a 4th time, if I had to guess. And I'm not mad at it, honestly, because I think this fight could have gone either way. They're just 2 tiny guys, 225ers, and they don't gas out. They're super quick. Figueredo is humongous for the division. Moreno is just, again, a fan favorite, great fighting style, and this is one of those matchups where I think Moreno came in. I think he was maybe a little bit cocky. He just didn't look as smooth as he did in the first fight. Fighting with his chin up, hands open. Something about the second fight where he submitted Figueredo in the 3rd round he was just on point. The thing about Moreno was he was clocking Figueredo, and Moreno was holding more power in his punches than Figueredo. But Figueredo was just evading those punches, and when he was evading, he was countering, and that's what was catching Moreno. For those of you guys who don't watch the UFC but still listen to the podcast, you guys have no idea what I'm talking about. It was a great fight. We'll get to, and I can't wait for Moreno versus Figueredo 4, and I'm for sure rooting for Moreno. And Figueredo wants to do that in Mexico, and also they want to do. Oh no, I'm thinking of something else. They should have like Yair Rodriguez or something on that fight card too, because they should be a main event. I'd buy their fight if it was a main event of a card. But the big fight, the one we all spent the money on, the 75 doll hairs on, while I sniff this whiskey and give my smelling notes, is Francis Ngannou versus Cyril Gane for the UFC undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. Speaking about heavyweight, This is a heavyweight pour that we're sipping on today. It is very, very. This is such a smooth transition by me, by the way. Shout out to me. This is a very, very, very oak barrel char forward nose. It's got like sour oak on there, like sourness. It's very spice forward. Not necessarily rye spice, but maybe like I don't know, like baking spice, I suppose. A little bit of medicinal factor to it as well. A little bit of like a cough syrup. Nothing over the top. I'm not really getting a lot of fruit, but it's the oak takes forward. There's not a whole lot of sweet notes on this. I mean, you do have that baking spice in there, probably a little vanilla as well as with all bourbons, but I get a little bit of butterscotch too. But this is good though. This is a top notch nose here. This is a nose where you smell it and you're just like, oh, I'm getting into some shit. Yeah, it's just very oak forward. A lot of oak on there. A lot of like sour oak, like just musty, get like a mustiness to it, almost like a musty basement, but in a good way. Oak is on there. You can tell that it almost smells like it's like double barreled or something like that. Maybe that's the sweetness. It's been sitting in the barrels for 12 years before getting blended, so it's almost like a barrel sweetness. One thing that I've been reading up on recently is how is how the whiskey will extract the sugars from the oak after a certain amount of time in the barrel. I watched a few videos on that process and kind of what that meant, and maybe that's what I'm smelling because I'm not getting a whole lot of like lighter notes like fruitiness or like floral or citrus or something like that. It's mainly like dark spice, barrel, oak, sweetness. It's very, very nice. It's there's a lot going on it too. Very nice. I mean, very, very, very nice nose from Elijah Craig here on this one. Uh, what do I want to do? Do I want to drink the whiskey now, or do I want to? I want to talk about the fight a little bit, and then we'll go into the whiskey. Ngannou versus Gagne. Gagne went in as a favorite on this fight, which blew my mind. How the hell how is Gagne favored over the reigning, defending, undisputed heavyweight champion of the world who just knocked out the consensus greatest heavyweight to ever step foot in the UFC octagon in 2 rounds, nonetheless, basically 1 round. I went to this fight. I had no idea what was going to happen. I had posted on my Instagram story last week before the fight that I had Ngannou winning within 2 rounds by knockout. I didn't talk about it on the podcast because I forgot, but that was my official prediction. And the fight could not have gone any different. Now, if I had known that one of Francis Ngannou's knees was obliterated and he was going to be wearing 2 knee sleeves, I probably would have changed my mind a little bit. But I don't think anyone knew that going into this fight. I'm pretty sure that's probably how Ngannou and his camp wanted it. So it didn't affect anything. But Ngannou ends up winning by unanimous decision because he wrestle fucked Gagne for the last 3 rounds of the fight, which is insane to me. I mean, I should have if I put money on Ngannou even scoring a takedown in this fight, never mind the 3 or 4 or 5 he scored, I probably would have been a millionaire by now if I put like a few G's on it. Francis looked about as good as you can look for someone fighting on one leg, is the way I like to think of it. Gagne did outstrike Francis for the first 2 rounds of the fight. When a heavyweight is bodied up, looking like a statue, and he's coming at you in a sideways karate stance, bouncing back and forth, kind of like Stephen Thompson, you know you're in for a long night. And that's the stance that Gagne was coming out with. Open, hands low, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson style karate stance as a heavyweight, weighing in at like 250 pounds, bodied up, looking like a French Anthony Joshua. And he pieced apart Francis for the first 2 rounds. Didn't really hurt Francis. Cyril doesn't have knockout power, so I wasn't afraid of Francis getting knocked out. I was more afraid of him kind of getting gassed out towards the end of the fight, if anything, and getting overwhelmed, because Gagne also does not stop. He's got a great gas tank. He's going to be a future champion. I guarantee it. But Ngannou played it smart. He stayed, he kind of stayed condensed. He still opened up a few wild flurries from time to time, but he stayed condensed. He was smart and tactical with his striking. And I think once he knew that, hey, Gagne's a serious striker and I have a bum knee, I'm not going to be able to fight this way. And he took it to the ground, and he actually made some really nice transitions and some nice ground and pound and submission attempts. To me, that's when I saw Ngannou as, wow. Because I saw Francis Ngannou fight Stipe Miocic at UFC 220 in January of 2018 with my brother. And that was the fight that Francis lost for the first time ever, and he got absolutely dominated by Stipe. I mean, an absolute whooping of a beatdown by Stipe. Stipe ate some shots. He definitely received a little bit of CTE from that fight, but Stipe just utilized his wrestling. Francis had no idea how to defend or how to react to that. And given Stipe is the greatest heavyweight of all time as of right now, but it was shocking how underprepared Francis Ngannou was. I remember the audience would boo every time Stipe got a takedown because we knew it wasn't coming back up, and that's not what we paid our hard-earned money for. But that's kind of how this looked with Gagne. Ngannou looked tactical with how he was setting up his takedowns. To actually perform the takedown, he was just utilizing his brute strength as he should. But it was impressive, honestly. The last 3 rounds were a little boring, probably, to a lot of people. I found them impressive, and I look at Ngannou in a whole new light now. I need to take a sip of water and then whiskey. Uh-oh. I got low battery on my Mac. We got 8%. Let's see if we can do this. I could probably take... no, I don't want to risk it. I'll just keep an eye on it. Might be a shorter podcast. We might be wrapping it up soon because I forgot to plug in my laptop before I started this podcast because I'm an idiot. Oh, before I even take a sip, shout out Elijah Craig, C921, UFC 270. Let's drink a little bit of whiskey, you guys. Cheers to another week. Ooh. That'll wake you up. That'll do it. 7% battery. Oh God, I'm getting nervous. I get a lot of caramel on the note on this one, like caramel candy, like a Charleston Chew. I get Charleston Chew vibes from this. I haven't had whiskey all day. I barely had anything to eat all day either. A little bit of spice, a lot of oak, and Charleston Chew is like the dominant tasting note here. And it is sitting heavy in my chest. I'll tell you that much. It's sitting heavy. I'm going to be checking my battery percentage from here on out. How far are we into the podcast? We're 24 minutes. It's going to be a short one. For sure going to be a short one, but that's okay. That's what happens. But anyways, Charleston Chew, rich candy, oak. That's delicious. Very sweet. It's drinking every bit of 120 proof, which is not a bad thing. That's right around my wheelhouse. Nice oak. This tastes like it'd be like double barreled or something, or toasted barrel. This is like a very, very dark, sweet aged bourbon. I mean, this is fantastic. I'm getting caramel vanilla Charleston Chew candy the most out of anything, with oak, some forward spice in there. I don't know if it's rye spice. I don't know if it's baking spice, but there is a little bit of a spice and a heat to it. It coats the mouth well. My entire mouth is feeling the flavors that I'm supposed to be feeling, and it sits heavy as a barrel-proof whiskey, uncut, unfiltered, should do. This is delicious. This is delicious. Oh, the oak is present there. This is good. Wow. I am very impressed with this. Very impressed with this. Very good. To close out UFC 270 talks, I think this was a huge fight for Ngannou because for the first time ever, he is on the end of his contract with the UFC, and he is going out as champion if he so chooses. I won't get into the nitty-gritty of it, even though I can, because I only have 6% battery life, but the lowdown of it is that he's banking on himself, and he truly believes that he can go out and make what people are calling, I'm sorry for cussing, fuck you money. And he can go fight Tyson Fury and make $30, $40, $50 million. The UFC is paying him $600,000 per fight, and he fight once or twice a year as the UFC heavyweight champion of the world. To most people, that's just unacceptable. I know a lot of people will be like, oh, what are you complaining about? But this guy's the heavyweight champion of the world. How much was Tyson making? You know what I mean? How much is Fury making? How much was Anthony Joshua making per fight? Klitschko. These heavyweight champions in boxing, I think Francis sees that. He knows he's a knockout artist. He wants to go fight Fury, and I think that's exactly what he's going to do. And just so happens that he's probably going to be out for the next year with his knee, getting surgery, I would assume. I think it's a complete MCL tear he was dealing with. I don't know that for a fact, but probably going to be out for the next year. That's when his UFC contract is up at the end of this year. It just works out perfect. I'm thinking middle to late next year, we see Ngannou versus Fury, assuming the stars align. And we're going to see Cyril Gane fight for the championship again very soon. He probably needs to get one more win, and then he'll fight, I would assume, the winner of Jones versus Stipe, who will fight for Francis Ngannou's stripped title, and it's going to be absolute chaos, and I'm going to love it. UFC 270, those are my thoughts, the official Who Gives a Dram thoughts. We'll go to the bourbon here in a little bit. I have to cut this episode short, unfortunately, a little bit. I want to talk about the one thing that I talked about at work today that it just pisses me off while I'm drinking this delicious whiskey, which looks great in the glass too. You guys, you got to think about like a Charleston Chew with like maybe some like nutmeg spice sprinkled over like Salt Bae does. And then age it in a barrel and put oak in it. That's what this tastes like. Oh yeah, this is good. So I don't know who's listening on this podcast. If any one of you guys are in the corporate world, I don't really consider myself in the corporate world, but I have to do a lot of emails now, and I do a lot of bullshit. And I love my job. I think it's great. I love the people. But I cannot stand the way people talk when they're trying to be quote unquote corporate or professional or whatever the hell they're trying to do, because it just sounds a bitch. So I have one word written here that I absolutely hate. I was thinking of 3 today. I wish I remembered. I think oh shoot, I can't remember them now. There were 2 other ones that I thought were real good. Team. Referring to someone as your team, like they're the Patriots. No, just say, hey guys. Like when someone sends out an email that says team, if they're referring to a bunch of people, or like my team here, me and my team have decided that, what you the New York Giants, or do you just work in a cubicle like me, not your team? Don't like that. And again, if anyone is listening to this, like, this is a joke. I feel this way in my bones, but it's a joke, but not really a joke. There was another term that I just can't stand. Oh, it's all coming back to me. Let's put it on the calendar. Why don't we just say a time and you give me a number or a Zoom link? Why do we? I understand the purpose of a calendar, but saying let's put it on the calendar is so, like, I hear that phrase so often that it just melts in my brain, and I think, like, okay, I need to go home and write this on the calendar that's on my fridge, even though I don't even have a calendar on my fridge. And I just, like, I can't stand it. But the one word that I cannot stand in corporate America or sales or whatever, wherever you say this stuff, and I hope someone who's listening can agree with me here, is the words "let's connect." Oh, I hate that word. I hate. Hey, let's connect this time. Let's connect that time. Oh, guys, let's come in here. Let's join the Zoom. We can connect about this. Do you mind connecting over the phone? Let's connect over some coffee. Like, I'm not a board game. There's not blue and red tokens you're trying to make a row of 4 of. Let's just say, hey, let's talk. Or can you talk to me or call me? Why do we need to say let's connect? There's no reason to say let's connect. It's like there's no reason, and this isn't my bit. I'm taking this from Chris D'Elia. He said this on some podcast, but he said there's no reason to say the word actually. Because if something is actually that, it's still that. So what's that word for? Same thing with connect. In a corporate setting, sometimes you need to connect. You need to connect things, to make them work. That makes sense. But you don't connect to talk about growth in quarter 1. You just don't. You don't connect to talk about something to do in HR. You talk about it. You don't connect about it, you talk about it. There's no reason for that word. I hear that word every day. And you know what? I am guilty of this too. I type that word as well. And I'll be typing on my laptop away and I say connect. Hey, let's connect over the phone. And I always want to just punch myself square in the noggin. But it does make life easier. And I guess I'm a hypocrite, I suppose. But, oh, God, I cannot stand that word. So, what were the 3? It was put it on the calendar. What was the second one or the first one? I don't remember. Team. It's team. Put it on the calendar and let's connect. Can't stand those words in a corporate setting. We're at 4%. Got to finish this episode up. We won't talk about Boba Fett and Peacemaker this week. I loved them. Episode 4 of both Peacemaker and Boba Fett were so awesome, especially Boba Fett at the end, where you hear Mando's music when the lady was like, you can't find muscle, but sometimes you can buy it, and Mando's music comes on. I'm predicting that Boba Fett's going to go to Mandalore with the girl there. I don't remember her name, and they're going to hire Mando and all the Mandalorians out there, because Mando is the king of Mandalore, because he does hold the Darksaber. So nerdy, everything I'm saying, and I can't wait. And Peacemaker is just bonkers, just out of this world funny. I love John Cena. He's one of my man crushes, and God, what a role for him. James Gunn is a chef's kiss of a director and writer. God, I love the show. I love the show. I didn't think I was gonna like it as much as I do. But let's get into a rating of this whiskey. Why don't we? Elijah Craig Barrel Proof C921. So what I like about this whiskey is that it's very bold in its darker notes. It just doesn't have a lot. It doesn't have any like nice, sweet, inviting notes. This is very, in my opinion, it drinks like 120 proof whiskey. It smells like 120 proof whiskey. It finishes very much like 120 proof whiskey. That oak, baking spices on the nose paired with like that nice caramel vanilla Charleston chew or cowtail taste on the palate, and then just a nice hot finish that's also pleasantly sweet at the same time. I mean, I've never had a bad Elijah Craig barrel proof batch. I recommend that if you're going to buy a barrel proof whiskey that's going to be somewhat readily available, if it's going to be something that's always available, I would tell you go buy Wild Turkey Rare Breed. We haven't done it on the podcast yet. We will do it very soon. But if you're looking for something that's not impossible to find, you might have to spend a little bit more money, but it's going to be worth it. It's Elijah Craig barrel proof, 10 times out of 10. If I'm going to rate this whiskey right now, the first number that comes to me is 9.1, maybe 9.2. I'm going to say 9.2. This is delicious, man. This is right up my alley. And I don't remember liking it as much. My brother got chocolate on this, and I don't get chocolate on this. Maybe like a little bit of dark chocolate on there, potentially, but nothing overpowering. The last time I drank this, I think I was still going through my tasting phase of COVID, and I couldn't taste as much, but 9.2. Let's stamp that, 9.2. Who gives a Dram scale? Elijah Craig Barrel Proof C921. And that's going to do it for this week, you guys. We're in and we're out. We're efficient here at the Who Gives a Dram Studios. 36 minutes in. I appreciate each and every one of you that are listening to this podcast on a weekly basis. If you're new to listening, thank you for checking us out, and I appreciate you giving me a chance to talk my nonsense on a podcast that I love doing. Follow me on all social media platforms, Who Gives a Dram. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. And make sure you're also following my other podcast, Bourbon with Friends, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok as well, all Bourbon with Friends. We release episodes over at Bourbon with Friends twice a week. Who Gives a Dram once a week. So I got 3 podcasts out a week for the most part. You can also subscribe on all platforms of both my podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube for both of us as well. Make sure you're liked and subscribed on there. And for me, for Who Gives a Dram, go onto iTunes, leave a rating and review. It really does help. No one ever does it. I had one person do it for me since the time I've been asking. So sad. But go do it for me. It just helps me out a lot, and I would appreciate it. So we're going to end it here, you guys, 38 minutes in. I love you guys. Thank you so much. Nick Bossy's playing me out. Not Pretty New Diamond. Who gives a... I'm tired. It's been a long day. What Happened to Country is going to play me out. Nick Bossy, my brother. And as always, you guys, always remember, whiskey's the water of life. So let's start living.
My hands are tired from paying my bills, staring at a bottle, I'm aiming to kill. Weeks passing by and the seasons keep changing. I'm playing my song, trying to make me a name. People say as they walk out the bar, the kid's gone places, maybe even a star. But they don't play country down in Nashville today, just the same chord progression with nothing to say. What happened to country? 3 chords and the truth. And who's gonna step up and fill their big shoes, writing songs about outlaws, singing all night, and songs that'll make a grown man cry. They use auto-tune now down on Music Row, 'cause true country died there a long time ago. No, they don't play Waylon on the boulevard, but they'll do anything to be rock stars. What happened to country? 3 chords and the truth. And who's gonna step up and fill their big shoes, writing songs about outlaws, singing all night, and songs that'll make a grown man cry. I do believe there is hope for us yet, 'cause there's millions of people who cannot forget the way Johnny Cash brought a tear to their eyes, or how Marty Robbins painted Texas skies. What happened to country? 3 chords and the truth. And who's gonna step up and fill their big shoes, writing songs about outlaws, singing all night, and songs that'll make a grown man cry. A grown man cry. A grown man cry. I won't let country die.